Happy Halloween, everybody. Let's talk about Halloween 2, the 1981 original sequel to John Carpenter's horror masterpiece. This film picks up right where the original left off. Laurie, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, is being taken to the hospital, and Michael Myers is still out there stalking a bunch of other teenagers, and Dr. Loomis is still on the hunt to try to find him. I shot him 6 times! I shot him in the heart! He's not human! And as a warning to anyone who has not seen this film, this review is going to contain spoilers. This movie feels like a logical continuation of what John Carpenter set up. Rick Rosenthal, the director, did a pretty good job of emulating Carpenter's style, a lot of really creepy wide shots. Even though they had a bigger budget to work with, it still feels suitably low scale, which is something that I really like about this movie. There are more graphic kills, there's more makeup involved with some of these kills, there's clearly more extras and actors to work with, but it still feels like a smaller film, which is something that was so great about the first Halloween, because it felt like such a tiny little movie that exploded into something gigantic. And since they had a bigger budget to work with, they could do more things with the story, like Michael Myers walking around in a crowd of trick-or-treaters in a Halloween mask with blood all over him. That's not strange on Halloween night. And so he blends in. And when a young kid named Ben Tramer shows up in a similar outfit, he is targeted by Loomis and eventually is killed in a motor accident.
Well, you could ask Dick Baxter. He'd go out with you.
I'd rather go out with Ben Tramer.
Ben Tramer? I knew it!
And I like that they explored that, and they could have gone even deeper with that. The idea of looking for one guy in a Halloween outfit amongst a crowd of people who are also dressed up for Halloween. Carpenter once again did the score this time around, this time collaborating with Alan Howarth, and it's a pretty good update. He didn't remix things too much, he didn't change things that much. I have it on vinyl, I often play it for Halloween parties. I'm also a big fan of creepy abandoned hospitals. There's something about some small town hospital that's pretty deserted in the middle of the night that's extremely scary to me. One of the major criticisms of Halloween 2 is that it's far more gory than Carpenter's original. Interestingly, Rick Rosenthal filmed it to be more subtle, a lot like what Carpenter did. Apparently, Carpenter underwent reshoots and reshot a lot of scenes to up the gore factor, much to Rick Rosenthal's dismay. I guess Carpenter felt that because of all of the films that Halloween inspired, like the Friday the 13th movies and other slasher films, that if they didn't up the gore factor, it would be considered not scary enough. This, I think, was a really poor choice and one of Carpenter's worst decisions because it was one of the major criticisms of the movie. And it does kind of make some of the characters feel like disposable bodies eventually waiting to be killed, which is pretty much the big thing you ever hear from a critical standpoint of all slasher movies. Characters aren't characters, they're just walking mannequins ready to be killed in gory ways. Halloween 2 may have been the first big film to start that, because the first Halloween obviously had a lot of deaths, but they were off-screen or the gore was very minimal. This film went way too over the top with it, close-ups of needles and eyes, burning women alive in hot tubs. And while watching it today, it feels almost tame compared to other horror films that have come out since. I can see how at the time people would have felt that way. There's also too many randoms walking around exploring this empty hospital waiting to be killed, and that's one of the side effects of that trend, where we have to have these really gory deaths, and we don't want our leads, like Laurie or Dr. Loomis, to die so quickly, so let's have a bunch of random people get killed. And there's a little bit too much of that. It kind of drains the suspense because you're just waiting for the kill. You're not as invested in the scene. And sometimes this movie can have that as a major flaw because it doesn't set up the sequences as well as it could. Kind of like the way Final Destination movies really try to get you to wait and anticipate how someone's going to die. This movie just has characters exploring dark corners of hallways, and you're just waiting for Myers to eventually pop out and kill them. There's also an attempt to create a backstory for Michael Myers here, a reason for why he can keep getting shot over and over again and continuously get up. In the first film, he was basically evil personified. That was the theme of that movie. It tries to hint that Michael is something else, possibly supernatural. It doesn't come out and say it, but clearly after being shot multiple times in the first one and multiple times in this one, something else is going on with Michael Myers beyond the idea of him just being evil. And it worked just enough in the first film where you felt so terrified by his presence, He felt like this unstoppable force. Also, this film relies very heavily on the knowledge that you have seen the first. There is very little setup for what has gone on before it. This film benefits heavily from watching the first and then this one back to back. It's pretty much the best way to watch Halloween 2, almost like an elongated miniseries. But it's also a flaw because it does really nothing to set up Laurie Strode's character, and she's basically in a hospital bed for most of the movie until she's once again running from Michael Myers. So as a standalone movie, it definitely doesn't work, and it really requires you to watch both back to back, and that's easily the best way to view this film. Also, there's a lot of off-screen kills that don't really make sense, like this one doctor or nurse with an IV set up to drip blood out of her for a very long period of time. There's a lot of moments like that where you're like, what exactly was Myers doing during this movie when he's stalking through these hallways? Is he also going to an elementary school and writing Samhain on a chalkboard for the viewers and for the cops to find? Like, there's a lot of things that feel like added story elements at the last second to explain his backstory and to have more gory kills. Beyond those flaws, Halloween 2 can be watched as a fun follow-up from the first. It is very suspenseful. I think it's a very well-directed movie in regards to the visual look of it. It captures John Carpenter's feel very well. There's a lot of very creepy wide shots. Michael Myers still really works as a villain, and Donald Pleasence as Loomis is once again like the heart and soul of this movie. Whenever he's talking about his past experiences with Myers, it's very exciting, and Halloween 2 has always been a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. I have a lot of issues with it from a story perspective, but like I said, it's best viewed when you watch the first and then this back to back. And in so doing, you can have a fun Halloween night, and I respect them for actually ending this story and for not having yet another Halloween movie with Michael Myers. They did try to do something different. Next year, we're going to be talking about Halloween 3 as well as every single other Halloween movie leading up to the new Halloween. I'm going to review one Halloween film a month, starting in March, I believe, leading up to the new Halloween film. And yes, that's including Halloween Resurrection and the two Rob Zombie Halloweens. But all that being said, I'm going to give Halloween 2 a B-. It's better than most of the horror sequels in franchises that started at that time. It's far better than Friday the 13th Part 2, leaps and bounds better than Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, which I really don't like. This is a perfectly enjoyable Halloween movie, and it did its best. Guys, I did want to do more videos with my wife. We had planned to do this review together and Trick or Treat, but unfortunately she is down with the flu and a really bad ear infection. She's had it for almost 2 weeks now, and so we weren't able to film anything together. So I just want to let you know that's why after Child's Play it was just me. She wanted to do more, but she's been really sick. Guys, thank you so much for watching this 5th annual Halloween special. I had a great time talking about tons of horror movies with you, and as always, happy Halloween. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.